Have you ever felt like at any moment everything would end? Your heart races, your chest tightens, your throat closes. You try to take a deep breath, but no air seems to come in. It's like you're trapped inside one's own body, watching in slow motion the possibility of dying. It's hard to explain to someone from outside, because on the outside everything is normal. You even smile. You fulfill your obligations. No one notices. But inside, it's like it's screaming without sound. This feeling, this terrible fear that seems nameless, has a name, and the name is breakdown anxiety. Now listen to this very carefully. Jordan Peterson says that extreme anxiety is the soul screaming for order in an internal world filled with chaos. It's not just a disease. It's a symbolic call, a warning from the psyche. It's your unconscious saying, hey, we can't go on like this anymore. Something has to change. Now. Panic, that fear of dying that you feel. It is not real death, but it is the collapse of all the internal structures that you have allowed to crumble little by little, the repressed emotions, the ignored traumas, the truths you pretended not to see. All of this is piling up until the body screams, and the body's scream is powerful because he doesn't use words. One symptom, tachycardia, blurred vision, nausea, feeling of fainting, nameless fear, desire to run away. You rush to the hospital. You get tests done, and the tests say, you're fine, but you know you're not. And that's the most desperate thing. Why nobody sees what you feel. Now listen, you're not dying, but something inside you is trying to be reborn. And this process of psychological rebirth is painful, chaotic, disorienting. Peterson reminds us that chaos is where we are when we don't know where we are. This is what anxiety is. You have been thrown into chaos. No map, no direction, no structure, but not by chance. She came to show you that the way you are living, emotionally, mentally, is unsustainable. It's an implosion of the soul, a desperate call for change. And here is the symbolic twist. The fear you feel is not of physical death. It is the death of the old me that you no longer want to sustain. The mask you wear, the life you tolerate, the history you repeat, that old identity is imploding. Extreme anxiety is the birth of consciousness. It's as if your psyche says, you will be born again, whether you want it or not. And like every birth, it hurts, but it doesn't kill. It transforms you. So I ask you now, stop fighting the symptom and start listening to what it is trying to tell you. You don't need a new medicine. You need a new structure, of a new truth, of courage to look at what you have tried to avoid for years. And it starts today, here. You are here because something in you knows. Fear is not the end. It is the beginning of lucidity. And as Jordan Peterson would say, truth is the only way to reorganize chaos. And it is better to voluntarily face the pain of truth than to continue suffering involuntarily from lies. You are not dying. You are waking up. You are not feeling all this because you are weak. You are feeling all this because your mind is saturated, fragmented, overwhelmed by thoughts that find no place to rest. It's like you're trying to live 100 lives at once, solving all the world's problems before something terrible happens. And that is pure anxiety. Jordan Peterson explains that anxiety comes on strong when the individual loses the structure of perception of reality. You begin to drown in future possibilities and lose clarity of the present. Your psychic system, which should function like a lighthouse, begins to behave like a fire alarm going off for no reason, or rather, with reasons you don't understand. This is what makes anxiety so distressing. It pushes you into a state of mental hypervigilance without a concrete cause. You don't know exactly why you're so distressed, but you are. The anxious mind works like this. You have a thought. This thought generates fear. This fear is heightened by other thoughts. And when you realize it, you've already mentally built it, the worst possible version of the future. And the worst part, you believe this version as if it were inevitable. What if I pass out? What if I have a heart attack? What if no one helps me? What if this never passes? These questions are not innocent. They are mental cascades that paralyze the body and block action. Peterson shows us that in such states the mind is not connected to reality, but operating in symbolic survival mode. You're fighting monsters that don't exist, but that feel real enough to make you tremble. And the origin of this? Lack of structure. When you don't structure your day, your thoughts, your emotions, chaos reigns. And psychological chaos is not just confusion, it's pain, it's suffocation, it's panic. Jordan Peterson states that structure gives meaning to suffering. And when you lose structure, suffering becomes unbearable. Look around you now. How many decisions are you avoiding? How many emotions are you pushing down the drain? How many truths are you afraid to face? Each of these omissions turns into little knots inside your mind. And these knots, when accumulated, turn into anxious breakdowns. The anxious mind is a mind that desperately needs boundaries, in order, of emotional routine, from a place where I can land without fear. That's why the first step to getting out of this state is not to think positive or try to calm down. It is structure your internal and external reality. Start with what is within your control. Sleep at the same time. Wake up at the same time. List the 3 problems that most trouble you. And then choose a micro step to tackle the first one. You don't need to overcome anxiety today, but you need to start building the structure she begs you to create. Peterson says that order is the basis of courage, and that means you don't have to be brave before you act. You need to act, and then courage will arise as a consequence of the order you created. You want to control everything. You want to ensure that nothing goes wrong, that no one abandons you, that the future is predictable, that life stops surprising you with pain. But this need for absolute control is exactly what is making you sick. In an attempt to avoid suffering, you build a mental system where everything needs to be under your control. You anticipate speeches, create imaginary dialogues, review past decisions, analyze people, foresee mistakes, interpret silences. All this so as not to be caught by surprise. But the truth is, the more you try to control life, the more vulnerable you become to panic. Jordan Peterson teaches that the search for total security is a childish denial of reality, because life, by nature, is unstable, unpredictable, full of variables that you will never be able to master. And when your internal system is based on the illusion of control, any sign of loss of control becomes an existential threat. You lose the ground inside. That's when the panic sets in, not as an enemy, but how a symbolic reflection of his failed attempt to be God. You want to control time, others, your body, your emotions, the future, but nobody can. And the anxious breakdown in this case is the breaking of your mental castle of control. Peterson says, chaos is where we are when we don't know where we are, but it's also where renewal begins, i.e., when everything falls apart, something new can be built, as long as you accept that you are not in control of everything. Extreme anxiety comes from the fear of losing control, and the panic from the experience that you've already lost it. But that doesn't have to be the end. It could be the beginning of conscious surrender. You begin to heal the moment you say to yourself, I don't control everything, but I can choose how I react to what happens. This small space between stimulus and response is where emotional freedom is born. As long as you believe you need absolute certainty to live in peace, you are trapped. But when you learn to living with uncertainty, a new kind of clarity is born. The clarity of flexibility. Yes, something can go wrong, but it can also work. Yes, the future is uncertain, but it also means he's open to new possibilities. You need to understand, control is not strength. Conscious surrender is. And surrendering is not giving up. It's recognizing that there is something bigger than you, that you can't predict everything, but you can build enough internal structure to deal with whatever comes your way. This is the new pact with reality that you need to make, and it starts with a simple act. Breathe. Feel the ground. Look around. You are here. You are alive. You are stronger than you think, because you are facing the chaos without running away. And now, with a more open heart, I invite you to do something important. If this resonates with you in any way, please subscribe and like. This will help this video reach someone who might be desperate right now, and you'll have been a part of that. To help is to heal, and spreading clarity is a way to build meaning amidst chaos. Maybe you've already thought this silently. Have I gone crazy? Why doesn't anyone around me feel what I feel? Have I lost control of my mind for good? And this is where I need to tell you, as firmly and truthfully as possible, you're not crazy. You are emotionally disorganized. There is a profound and fundamental difference between clinical insanity and emotional breakdown. Severe anxiety, panic attacks, choking attacks are not signs of insanity. They are symbolic consequences of a mind that carried more weight than it should. Jordan Peterson explains that the human mind needs structure as much as the body needs bones. Without structure, the body collapses. And without emotional structure, the mind does the same. So when you feel like you're going to explode, like that you can't take it anymore, that you're going to freak out, actually you're trying work without a base. You're trying to keep your sanity on top of unstable foundations. Collapse does not mean madness. It means that your soul is tired of supporting a character that no longer serves you. You've been silent for so long, so much time swallowing words, so long trying to look strong, so long pretending everything was okay, that now your body, your mind, and your unconscious rebelled. And rebellion comes in the form of symptoms, palpitations, feeling of suffocation, intrusive thoughts, desire to disappear, nameless anguish. All this is symbolic language of emotional disorganization. And no, you are not weak. You just has not yet learned to order his internal world. Peterson reminds us that you can't fix the world until you fix your own room. And this room is not just literal. It's the room of your mind, the room of your story, the room of your unprocessed memories, your muffled traumas, your ignored truths. You are emotionally messed up because no one taught you how to deal with what you feel. They taught you to keep quiet, to move on, to swallow your tears. But they didn't teach us to look inside with courage. And now what was repressed screams. The good news is, emotional disorganization can be cured, and it starts with validation. You no longer need to doubt what you feel. You no longer need to compare yourself to others. You no longer have to force yourself to function while you're broken inside. You need to accept that your mind is asking for help, and the first step is to recognize that this request is not crazy. It is lucidity trying to be born. Jordan Peterson would say that the path to redemption begins with facing the truth, and your truth today could be this: I'm emotionally broken, but I'm ready to start rebuilding. This is not weakness. This is a radical act of courage, and perhaps for the first time, you are allowing yourself to be seen, including by yourself. So breathe, not like someone who runs away from pain, but like who finally decides, listen to it, because only what is felt can be healed. Anxiety doesn't appear suddenly. It gradually forms like a storm that announces itself on the horizon with small signs. A tightness in your chest that you ignore, a silent dissatisfaction that you push away with more work, an urge to cry that you swallow with more tasks, a discomfort that you disguise with smiles, and you continue. Keep going, keep accumulating, keep denying, until one day, the body locks up, the mind collapses, and you feel like you can't take it anymore. Anxiety at this point is no longer a warning, it's a scream. And what she's trying to tell you is, you are running away from something you need to face. Jordan Peterson teaches us that everything you avoid becomes a shadow that grows and takes its toll. It is not possible to live in peace when you are at war with your own truth. Look, maybe you're unhappy at work, but you keep going. Maybe you're suffocating in a loveless relationship, but you stay. Maybe you know deep down that you're wasting your life on distractions, but you're afraid to change. And what happens? Life starts to take its toll, not with external punishments, but with internal pains. Anxiety is one of those pains. It appears as a symbolic result of a life that was moving away from what is true. You stopped listening to yourself. You stopped doing what nourishes you. He stopped saying no when he wanted to. He stopped looking for meaning. And the mind does not tolerate this kind of betrayal for long. It starts to sabotage your sleep, your hunger, your concentration, your peace, until you feel like you're a hostage to yourself. Peterson states that avoiding what needs to be done does not free you from suffering. It only postpones it and increases it. This phrase should be written on the wall of everyone who suffers from anxiety, because in many cases, the origin of the pain is in the accumulation of things you know you need to do, but don't do, conversations you avoid, changes you put off, decisions you put off. And here's the turning point. Anxiety is the price you pay for postponing the responsibility of living authentically. You are not being punished. You are being called. Called to stop running away. Called to listen to your soul. Called to begin living in truth. Of course, this call is scary. It requires you to break patterns, to confront your comfort zone, to feel what you never wanted to feel. But it is this confrontation that generates transformation. Don't wait for anxiety to get worse to start changing. Don't let life have to shout louder and louder. You can start today. Peterson always says that the meaning of life is in responsibility, not on the run, not in momentary pleasure, but in the courage to do what needs to be done, even when it is difficult. So here's an exercise. Take a piece of paper. Write down 3 things you have been avoiding. Choose one, and take the first step today. It could be sending a message, ask for help, make a decision, make a minimal choice, but do it, because every step towards your truth decreases the symbolic power of anxiety. You are not adrift. You just need to get back to what matters. Perhaps one of the hardest truths to face is this. Much of your anxiety stems from the lies you tell yourself every day. You say everything is fine, but it's not. He says he can hold on a little longer, but he's at his limit. He says he doesn't feel anything, but his body is exploding inside. You smile at others, but cry silently when you are alone. And then one day, the body starts screaming, and you call it anxiety. But often the real name is accumulated denial. Jordan Peterson is firm on this point. He states that lies corrode the being. When you betray yourself, you weaken yourself profoundly. The truth, even if painful, is the only path to true liberation. And the first lie most of us tell is, I can't change. Or worse, I have no choice. But you do. Always had. But change exacts a price. And that price is truth. As long as you keep lying about what you feel, about who you are, about what you want, anxiety will continue to be the only way your psyche finds to force you to look at yourself. Why anxiety? It is a symbolic reflection of the internal conflict between the truth that screams and the lie that dominates. You are trying to live in a way that is not yours. You're following patterns that don't make sense. You're trying to keep up appearances, please people, fit in with expectations, and it all comes at a cost. That cost is peace. You will only find clarity again when you decide to stop running away from your own truth. And that doesn't mean impulsively breaking off everything, but it does mean starting to say to yourself, I'm tired of betraying myself. I'm tired of pretending, and I urgently need to start living in accordance with who I really am. Peterson reinforces that truth doesn't just guide us, it strengthens us, even when it hurts, even when it brings consequences, even when it forces us to rebuild everything from scratch. You need to understand, anxiety is not a punishment. She is the sign that you have strayed too far from the truth that sustains your soul, and now you have a calling. It's not about curing everything today. It's not about solving all problems overnight, but it's to stop lying, to start being honest with yourself. And then in time, clarity will come, like a ray of light piercing the fog. And here, once again, I invite you to be part of something bigger. If this resonates with you, like and subscribe. This way, you'll help this content reach those who need it and be a part of someone's transformation. You are not alone, and your decision to seek the truth can shine a light in someone else's life. Be that turning point. Today, have you ever noticed how, in the midst of an anxiety attack, your body speaks louder than any words? The chest tightens, the heart races, breathing shortens, my stomach churns, hands sweat, and the mind, in panic, believes, I'm going to die now. But this body language is not a mistake. She is a message, a physical scream that arises when you can no longer sustain emotional silence. Jordan Peterson explains that the body is a brutally honest ally. When the mind lies, the body reveals the truth. When the mouth is silent, the body speaks. And when you insist on not listening, he screams. Often what you call a panic attack is nothing more than a repressed truth trying to escape. It could be an old pain, a trauma that was never worked through, an anger you always swallowed, a sadness that was never cried, a word you never said, and the body, unable to carry so much, transforms this into symptoms. It's as if to say, since you won't speak, I'll speak for you. This is why so many people describe panic as inexplicable, because in fact is not rational. It's symbolic. It is a secret code of the unconscious. Peterson states that what is denied does not disappear. It hides, grows stronger, and returns to you in increasingly destructive ways. This is the cycle of anxiety. You feel something, you repress. The body accumulates. The body explodes with symptoms. You panic because you don't understand. And so the cycle repeats. What to do then? The answer is not to fight the body. It is listen to the body. When your chest tightens, ask yourself, what am I suffocating? When your heart races, ask yourself, what am I trying to run away from facing? When your breath catches, ask yourself, what can't I express in words? These questions will not eliminate the symptom immediately, but they will open a door. And through that door, you can begin to bring to light the truths that have been held back. It is painful, yes, but it's liberating, because every acknowledged emotion weakens the destructive power of anxiety. Peterson insists that word is the antidote to chaos, and prolonged silence, on the contrary, makes you sick. That's why therapies work, for example, because you give voice to what was imprisoned, and when the voice arises, the body finally rests. So understand, your body is not your enemy. He is your most faithful ally. He is begging for expression, and if you learn to listen to him, to translate his language, to dialogue with him, the panic will lose strength, because you will have discovered what was really being hidden. Take a deep breath now, not as a mechanical exercise, but as a symbolic act of saying to the body, I am ready to listen to you. This may be the first real conversation you've had with yourself in years, and it could be the beginning of the liberation you've been searching for. At the height of an anxiety attack, the most common feeling is, I'm going to die now. But most of the time, what's behind this despair isn't really a fear of death. It's the fear of life, the weight of living responsibly, the weight of facing one's own freedom. Jordan Peterson often repeats an idea that, at first glance, seems harsh, but is profoundly liberating. It's not death that scares human beings the most. It's life. It's the responsibility it demands. Think about it. How many times, in silence, have you preferred to hide behind excuses, routine, distractions, just to avoid taking on the life you were meant to live? How many times have you accepted less than you deserve because the alternative would have required too much courage? How many times have you stifled your own desires because fulfilling them would mean completely changing your reality? And that's precisely where anxiety grows. Why your soul knows that you are living less than you could live, and she can't take it anymore. The fear of dying, in an anxiety attack, is symbolic. It represents the fear of losing the you know, and at the same time, the fear of being born into a self that you don't yet understand. It's like standing in front of an abyss. On one side, life that no longer serves any purpose. On the other, the new life that has not yet been built. And in the middle, panic. Peterson insists that life demands sacrifice. And when you refuse to make the conscious sacrifice to give up illusions, face pain, accept responsibility, the sacrifice happens unconsciously. And this unconscious sacrifice often manifests as anxiety. You are not afraid of death. You are afraid of losing your comfort zone, of breaking with the old version of yourself, to let go of old securities, to actually live. And living requires brutal courage, because truly living means exposing yourself, taking responsibility, choosing, suffering, taking risks. And deep down, you know it. And that's why you feel so panicked, because you are running away from the life you need to face. But here's the twist. Every anxiety attack is also an opportunity, an invitation, a chance to look at yourself and ask, am I really afraid of dying? Or am I afraid of living the life I know I'm meant to live? This question is uncomfortable. She can bring tears, but it's also the question that begins to dissolve the panic, because it connects you back to the truth, and the truth sets you free. Jordan Peterson says, you have to become a monster, and then learn to control it. This monster is the life force you have repressed. It's the raw courage you've been hiding. It is the creative and destructive power that you pretended did not exist within you, but he is there. And anxiety is the symptom of a hungry monster, banging on the bars, asking to be recognized. You will not die. You will live. And that's much scarier. But it is also infinitely more transformative. One of the biggest mistakes made by those who suffer from anxiety is to believe that inner chaos is a formless enemy, impossible to understand. That's why it looks so overwhelming, because when you can't name what you feel, he grows in the darkness like an invisible dragon. Jordan Peterson uses this image a lot, the dragon. He says that every ignored problem, every unfaced fear, every repressed pain is like a little dragon you let live in your room. At first, he seems harmless. You think, it's not that serious, I'll deal with it tomorrow. But the dragon grows, and the more it grows, the more impossible it seems to face it, until one day he takes over the entire house, and you can't breathe anymore. This is the state of severe anxiety, a giant dragon that took over his mind, and if you try to run away, it grows even bigger. If you ignore it, it devours. But if you have the courage to turn on the light and look at it, what happens? You discover that you can start giving it a name, and by naming it, you weaken it. This is something profound. Everything you can name begins to lose its power to paralyze you. When you say to yourself, I'm not dying, I'm panicking, you already gave it a name. When it says, I'm not crazy, I'm just emotionally overwhelmed, you already gave it a name. When admitting, I'm not without a way out, I'm afraid to live, you gave one more name. And suddenly, the chaos begins to reorganize itself. Not because it disappeared, but because now you know where it is. And as Peterson says, knowing where you are is the first step in deciding where you are going. One of the most practical tools for this is the emotional diary. Write. Put on paper what your body is screaming. List the thoughts that haunt you, not to judge, but to see yourself. Because the written word is like a lamp lit in the dark room of the unconscious. Another powerful practice is to create structure rituals. Simple but consistent things. Wake up at the same time. Make the bed. Take a short walk. List 3 priorities for the day. These small acts act as antidotes to mental chaos. They are symbolic reminders that you are not totally lost. There is a possible order, and you can build it step by step. Anxiety decreases when you stop seeing it as an invisible monster and start treating it as a decipherable signal. Each symptom has a meaning. Every crisis brings a message. Every fear reveals a truth. And here, once again, I ask you something. If this video is helping you, please like and subscribe. This isn't just a gesture. It's an act of support for those who suffer in silence. You could be the reason someone in despair finds clarity today. Chaos doesn't suddenly disappear, but when you have the courage to name it, it loses its power to devour you, and it starts to turn into something that can be faced and defeated. By now, you may have noticed something. Anxiety is not just an enemy to be eliminated. She is, in fact, a brutal invitation. A painful call, yes, but also transformative. It's as if life is saying, you can't live like you used to. Something needs to be born in you. Jordan Peterson constantly reminds us that the purpose of life is not happiness but meaning, and that is precisely why we are often torn from our comfort zone by pain, because pain forces you to seek greater meaning, and anxiety is one of those pains that cannot be ignored. You thought you were going to die. You believed you were going crazy. You thought there was no way out. But in reality, I was being forced to face an essential truth. The way you were living was not sustainable. And that's the point where many give up, but it is also the point at which some are reborn. Anxiety is a crossing. On one side is the old self, trapped in lies, denial, escape, illusions of control. On the other, there is the new me, more conscious, more responsible, more truthful. And between the two, the abyss of panic. You feel like you're going to fall, but if you have the courage to cross over, you discover that what seemed like death was, in fact, transformation. Peterson would say that the meaning of life comes when you carry the heaviest weight you can bear. And maybe that weight, in your case, is facing head-on what you've always avoided, the unresolved trauma, the unnamed pain, responsibility denied, the unlived life. And here's the hard but liberating truth. You will not be the same after anxiety. You may come out of it more broken, or you can come out of it stronger. It all depends on your choice. You can keep running away, trying to numb the symptoms, begging for it all to go away. Or you can use anxiety as a portal to consciousness, to truth, to building a life with more structure, more courage, and more meaning. Panic is the birth of clarity, and like every birth, it requires pain. It requires surrender. It requires courage. But in the end, it brings something new to light, something that has always been in you but now needs to live. So if you're listening to this, know this: anxiety isn't the end of your story. It's the beginning of a chapter you've never written before. And here is the final call. Stop running away. Stop lying. Stop living half-heartedly. Look inside. Take responsibility for your life and go through the chaos. You will not die. You will be reborn. And this rebirth may be the greatest gift you will give to yourself and to the world. If this resonated with you, please subscribe and like. This way, you'll help this video reach someone who, right now, may feel like there's no way out. You can be the bridge of clarity for someone in despair. Anxiety is brutal, yes, but she is also honest. She is showing that you can no longer live like before, and that, if you have courage, will be your liberation.